From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy, real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. Fourscore, and about a year and a half ago, our hosts brought forth on this platform a new podcast, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that mental health deserves attention. Now we are engaged in a great month of awareness, testing whether this podcast or any other podcast so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what the THERAPALs did here. It is for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that we take increased devotion to the cause, that this podcast of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from iTunes. And now, broadcasting from the mental health battlefield, that guy is Dr. Jim Job, and I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some pod therapy.
Oh my God, that was elegant. That was beautiful. In fact, I think that a United States president should read that during a time of some kind of internal battle or
okay, I'll run.
You may be the only person who hasn't announced that they're running for president. So just jump
Fine,
in.
I'll do it.
Are you old enough to run for president yet?
No.
Yeah, I think you have to be 45, don't you? Or is it 40?
I'm not sure, but in
I think
either case,
a congressman is 25. I think a senator is 35, and I think president is 40.
Yeah. No.
Okay. What are you, like 52? Is that not where you're at?
I'm too old. I'm 78.
That's right. Yeah, you've aged out. Yeah, I don't think
this is
anybody's
what diet and
anymore.
exercise will do for you.
Well, speaking of our great capital, I imagine that you wrote that because you may have been inspired.
I'm feeling very patriotic, yes.
Did you see the Lincoln Memorial during your trip?
I did.
You did?
And Ford's Theater.
Oh, Ford's Theater.
Which was by far the best.
Oh, wow.
Best thing I saw the whole weekend.
Wow, way to spit on Lincoln's grave, Nick. Jeez.
Yeah.
Show some reverence. Best part ever.
Ford's Theater was so cool because I'm a big history buff.
Okay.
So anytime I am someplace where something historic happens, I just get goosebumps.
Yeah,
and I get so excited.
Cool. That's really cool.
So it was really awesome to see that. So we flew in Friday, saw Smitty.
Yeah, you saw Smitty Scoop.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that he defeated you in some kind of weird hockey game.
We
arcade hockey or something.
Yeah, bubble hockey.
Bubble hockey.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we had dinner, and sorry to Fred and Lindsay.
Oh, you didn't catch up with them?
No, they were going to make the trip down, but it wasn't going to work. Our schedules just weren't aligning.
Yeah. So you had a good time.
Next time.
Was it cold up there?
It was rainy.
Oh, wow.
For some of the days.
Rain?
Yeah. It's this like liquid stuff falls from the sky.
Like tears.
Yeah, tears.
Okay.
It's like when God cries.
Yeah. Or when doves cry.
Yeah. Much better, yeah.
Prince is God, so it's pretty much all the same.
True.
So it was a good trip.
So yeah, it was fun. Yeah. So we played some bubble hockey, and it was cool because he took us to what's the place called? Penn Social.
Okay.
Oh, it's this bar,
and
it's got a whole bunch of arcade games.
Oh, cool.
And we walk down there, and that's the first thing I see.
Is the bubble hockey.
Because I love bubble hockey.
Oh, my God.
And I get close to it, and I see that it's Capitals themed. Like, it's all got...
Did you set it on fire?
No.
I think you should.
And then I got closer, and I realized that the other team was the Vegas Golden Knights.
Dude, that
So
sucks.
then I'm like, oh, we need to play.
And you lost.
So no, hold on. So this is funny because I told him, I was like, all right, we're going to play a best of 7.
Oh, wow. You played a full series? Poor Laura.
Well,
she's like, can we get back to the vacation
She was bored
now?
to tears.
This poor woman. Jesus, you're the worst person ever to go on vacation with.
Yes, I am. So he wins the first 3 games. Like, not
games.
even close.
Did you space them out every 2 days?
No. Should have. We should have.
Laura, we can't go anywhere. I need to hit the off season. I got to train.
So he wins the first 3 games, like, by a long shot. Totally wipes me away.
Shuts you out.
And then we play the 4th game, and I win.
Okay.
And then I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go out on a win.
Yeah.
So
you sacrificed the series so you could win one game.
Yes. That's all I wanted.
I think the true life story of that tale is that about the end of the fourth game, you looked up and you saw Laura scowling at you. And you were like, hey, I think I'm going to end right here. Yeah. I think I'm going to end with a little victory in my pocket and I'm still in a relationship.
She was just kind of over there, by the table by herself. And,
talking to Clinton.
I could see, like, all these guys are going to start looking over there thinking she's by herself. It's like, I don't know, let's go back over here.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, that was a really good idea. Well, very good, man. So it sounds like you had a really fun time. Yeah. Sorry I didn't join you, but I'm glad that you found ways to entertain yourself in my absence. I found ways to entertain myself in your absence.
I heard.
I stayed busy. You may have heard some podcasts that mildly reference you.
I did?
Yeah. But I did it. I held this thing together, okay? So I didn't crash the podcast.
No.
So far as we know. I haven't checked the stats.
Thank you, Jacob, for allowing that to happen.
Yeah, I was supervised. Jacob was there. He made sure my mic was off. We had a lot of fun, man. And while you were gone, I haven't talked about this on the show yet, but I had mentioned to you right before we started recording, while you were gone, I got scammed. And it was terrifying. And I need to tell you about this because it was the scariest freaking thing ever. Okay. I get a phone call Saturday morning. This was like first day of May, like right as May starts. It's, whatever that first Saturday was. I get a phone call. And it's from, like, somebody leaves a voice message, and it's on my therapist line. And they're like, Dr. Jobin, this is the sheriff's office. You need to call. There's a warrant out for your arrest. I'm not permitted to say much more over the voicemail. Please call me immediately. So I call the number back, and I'm like, oh, hi, this is Jim. Well, what's going on? And they go, you failed to appear as an expert witness in a case regarding a juvenile. And I'm like, I'm thinking about this because I'm like, I have received emails that are information seeking from judges regarding juvenile cases, and I didn't appear in court. No, I don't remember being summoned, but like, I definitely resonated with what he was saying. So I crap my pants, and I was like, well, what do I do? And like, I'm like, well, which judge is it? And he tells me the judge's name, and yep, it's a Las Vegas judge. And I'm like, oh my
really?
God.
Oh, they did their homework.
He had it nailed. So he's like, this judge, and I was like, I'm like, yes, that's a real judge. Like, oh my God, I'm dead. And so he's like, sir, I need you to give me a callback number right now. So I'm like, okay. So I give him my cell phone number. He says, okay, I'm going to hang up with you. I'm going to call you. I want you to answer. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I will. I hang up. My phone rings. Voice ID or caller ID, Clark County Sheriff's Office. And I'm like, oh my God. Pick up the phone. He's like, okay, this is Dwayne or whatever. And I'm like, okay, Dwayne, what's going on? He's like, there's 2 warrants out for your arrest. From this moment on, you are not allowed to hang up the phone with me. If you hang up the phone, we will send an officer to your home. And I'm like, no, we're cool. Like, I don't want to have problems with this. He's like, this case involves a juvenile, so you are not allowed to, you're not permitted to talk to anybody about what we're talking about right now. And I'm like, who's the kid? What's the case? And he's like, sir, I don't have that information. It's not permitted to me. I'm just a clerk. I don't know that kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, what do I do?
Clerk. Yeah, you know that stuff if it's a clerk.
Dude, I don't know. But anyway, so he scared me. And he's like, you need to come to the sheriff's office right now. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you need to get in your car. You come to the sheriff's office right now. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? He's like, you're turning yourself in. Or we're going to come get you. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, is there a way out of this? I was like, there's a warrants? Like, is there a fine I can pay? And he's like, well, there is a fine. And yeah, you are going to be required to pay it. If you want, we can suspend the warrant. You can come down to the office right now and pay the fine. But you're still going to report to court and deal with this. And I was like, no, that's fine. Let's do that. So I'm totally buying into this thing because I'm like, you want me to go to the sheriff's office? Like, doesn't sound like a scam. Well, then the dude's like, you know what? You got to come down here. And I'm like, well, what do I do? And he's like, tell me, you got to give us like $3,000. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, you're going to mail it to us though, because you can't bring us cash because it's an anti-bribery statute. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, so you need to go get a prepaid Visa. No, hold on. My sensors were going off too. Okay, good. And about here, I'm like, wait, what? But he's like, you're going to put it in an envelope. You're going to send it to the Department of Justice. And I'm thinking, okay, that's hard to fake. And I was like, you still need me to come down to the sheriff's office? He's like, yes. You need to mail this out and come down to the sheriff's office. And here, I'm going to meet you at my desk, and we're going to go over the file. I'm going to, you need to save the verification code on your Visa card because I need to use that to check the system and make sure that it's valid and stuff. And it's like he's giving me this whole lecture, and he's like, you need to go get
because he's gonna take the information off the card. It doesn't matter where you send the card because he doesn't need the card.
Well, I think he was going to give me like a PO box, and I was going to mail the card and then get to the sheriff's office and realize it's closed on Saturdays. and like, not be able to walk in. But he's scaring the crap out of me. And I'm like, well, can I get childcare? Like, I have my children, like, and can I? And he's like, no, you can bring your children with you, sir, but we're not taking any excuses. You need to get in the car right now. So I am freaking out. And I'm like, can I call a lawyer? And he's like, yes, I'm glad you asked. You have the right to call a lawyer. However, right now this is a civil matter, and you can solve this with a fine. If you bring your lawyer in, it's going to be treated as a criminal matter. So you can come down here. Oh, I was buying into it. And so he's like, you can come down to the office, and you can turn yourself in, and your lawyer can be here to mitigate the situation, but you will be booked for 72 hours. And then your lawyer can come defend you in court. And so I am losing my crap. Full-blown anxiety. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so scared. He's like, you cannot hang up the phone with me. You cannot call for childcare. You're in trouble, blah, blah, blah. At a moment of desperation, I pull up the judge's phone number that you and I used to work with in drug court. And I use my wife's phone, and I call that number, praying that this judge answers a random phone number that they have not seen on a Saturday. She answered.
Oh.
And I'm like, Judge, it's Jim. This guy's telling me I need to go to the sheriff's office. There's 2 warrants out for my arrest. And she starts yelling through the phone. She goes, that's bullshit. And she goes, ask for his employee badge number. And I'm like, what's your employee badge number? And then he hangs up. I'm like, what just happened? And she's like, they try that shit to me all the time. So then I get on the therapist group. There's a therapist Facebook group, and I get on there, and I'm like, hey, everybody, watch out, this just happened to me. And like 20 other therapists get on there, and they're like, me too.
My God.
He was going through Psychology Today, and he was calling each person and going, hey, you failed to show up as an expert witness. And so each one of us is freaking out, like, did I? I don't know. And so, dude, he's been trying this like crazy. So,
holy shit.
The judge... She's like, give me his number. And so, like, I give her the number of the guy. She calls and tries to set him up. And so she calls and she's like, hi, you left a message on my machine. I'm a therapist. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're, wanted, blah, blah, blah. We're going to come get you. And so she tries to bait him into, like, coming to get her. So she's like, okay, I'm going to give you the address. And he's like, yeah, we're going to have to come get you. You give us the money. And so she's like, sure, I'll give you the address. Are you ready? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, 200 Lewis Avenue. I'm in the office marked Judge Cynthia blank. I won't use her full name. And so he hangs up and he freaks out. And she's like sending officers to get him. So I don't know if they caught him, but it was terrifying. But anyway, so.
Oh, that guy did his homework.
Oh, dude, he had us dead to rights. Other therapists said that he actually took the time to look them up, and he would bring up cases if they had any public record. He'd be like, hey, you had that DUI in 1993. So we're trying to go easy on you here. You turn yourself in. So, dude, he did his homework, but he had me cold. Yeah, he scared the crap out of me. So it was really, really crazy. So, yep.
Damn.
I freaked the hell out.
That's crazy, because I actually had a scammer the other day call me, too.
Did you really?
Yeah, but this is one, the guy's like, he's like, yeah, just, and they have the ability to somehow make it pop up on their caller ID.
Yeah, he spoofed the Clark County Sheriff's Department number.
So this one called, and it was a Washington, D.C. number.
Okay.
And the guy said, because I answered because I was waiting for a call back from our representative about a tour for the Capitol.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, I'm like, I'm expecting a Washington, D.C. number. So
yeah.
So this guy calls, and he's like, yeah, I'm just calling from the IRS. I'm just letting you know that you have been awarded a grant of $7,000, and this is because you have been faithful in paying your taxes every year. And I'm like,
it's a reward.
Oh, okay. Right when he said that, I knew that was bullshit, because I was audited last year.
I was audited.
Okay.
You liar! I don't pay my taxes. Yeah. What are you talking about?
So he's like, are you interested in this? I'm like, yeah, $7,000. Yeah. Of course I'm interested.
The check. Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, well, we have a couple ways that we can get this money to you. If you go and you buy a prepaid gift card at one of these locations,
send it to us,
and then give us the number, and then we can load the balance onto that. And then there's some other thing that also involved a gift card.
Oh my God.
And then I'm like, he's like, which of those would you like? I'm like, no, just go ahead and mail me a check.
Yeah, send me the check. That's
and he's
fine.
He's like, well, no, we can't do that. I'm like,
cash is fine.
You're the IRS. Are you telling me that if I file and I get a refund from the IRS,
the check's going to bounce?
Yeah, that I have to go get a prepaid debit card to get my tax refund? It's like, you guys do this all the time. I don't have to tell you how to do your job. Just mail me a check. And then he hung up.
Yeah.
So
that was the end of your scam. I went deeper down the rabbit hole than you did. It was
that was
bad.
more convincing.
Oh, God, it had me, man. And I'd asked for a case number, too, and he was like, I can't give you that. And that felt suspicious. But anyway, so this is a very opportune time for us to talk about Mental Health Awareness Month, seeing as how my mental health was very shattered by that. I was anxious all day. It was a terrible experience, but it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we have been trying to do bonus content and getting people involved. Lots of listeners have been chiming in on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and they are making their voices heard. They are telling their stories. They're using the hashtag Mental Health Awareness Month, and you guys have been awesome for just putting out there all the content that we've been doing. Our Kickstarter is killing it. Oh my God, it's been picking up fire. In the first 24 hours, it had over 11% funded. 24 hours. That's cool. Crazy. That's so amazing. It's still chugging away. But a lot of people jumped on there just gave us a kickstart, pushed us forward. And so, hey, it's fun. We're doing Mental Health Awareness Month. We're trying to, raise awareness. We're trying to fund the show so we can do even more. But it's been an awesome month so far. One of the things that we had asked for was that, would listeners please submit to us recordings talking about Mental Health Awareness Month and maybe sharing their own stories. And some of you guys have been doing that. And so we've been gathering those. And today we're actually going to play one. So we have one from none other than THERAPOD, David Datascoop Villalon.
One of our bosses. So he gets to go first. Yep. Those are the rules.
It's a corrupt show. That's fine. That's fine. This is how this works. But yeah, we'll go ahead and give him a listen. So take it away, David.
Hi, this is David Datascoop Villalon, and I support mental health awareness. I want to do what I can to end the stigma around asking for help, so here's a little bit of my story. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, I lost the business that I'd spent most of my life building. I managed to keep it afloat for a few years, but eventually I had to take a job with a big company. In that transition, I lost a big part of my identity. A few years later, my marriage ended under similar circumstances. Without the financial spackle from the business, the cracks in the relationship couldn't be covered up any longer. In 2017, my wife broke my heart. When I told her I wished that I was dead and I needed someone to talk to, she told me to go talk to someone else. When I told her I called the suicide hotline, she ridiculed me. I asked, "Would you prefer I didn't call?" Shortly after that, I learned that my son was a meth addict. My son was struggling with his own mental health and addiction issues, but as parents, my wife and I were suffering in silence as well. 2 years and several therapists later, I'm still here to tell my story. Without the help of mental health professionals and my doctors, that might not have been the case. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It's time to turn the shame surrounding mental health into self-compassion and the courage to ask for help. My hope is that by sharing my story, I can help someone reach through their own shame, embrace their own courage, and ask for the help they need. Peace.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, David, thank you so much for sending that in. And I think just telling your truth, there's a lot of pieces to that story. Mm-hmm. And I really love it because this is a real human being who says it right here. I've really gone to therapy. And gave, I think, several different reasons for going to therapy, all of which are extremely valid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like having an economic crisis, right? A lot of people say, oh, well, that's not a mental health issue. The hell it's not.
Right.
The hell it's not. You know, like, yeah, I built an entire company and it shattered, and who am I? You know, we talked about his identity being wrapped up in that. Like, dude, I mean, I relate, you know, I know whenever I've lost jobs, you know, like that's shattering and terrifying, and that's a huge part of mental health.
We've both gone through that.
Yeah, and my bad. I've apologized. But then, you know, he also talks about, in the wake of that, a divorce. Right? Which is a whole nother issue that people might go to therapy for. And, you know, even if you're okay with the divorce, but in his case, he talks about having his heart broken. And then he relates to that idea of suicide, which is absolutely huge. And then a family member who has a drug and alcohol addiction. So, I mean, there's a story there where there's tons of good reasons to go see a therapist. And one of the things that really stood out to me is how he talks about seeing multiple therapists, seeing multiple doctors over time, and how he looks at that and says, I might not be alive today if it wasn't for mental health care.
Right, absolutely. And it's really difficult to come out and just have this conversation and just send a message like that to our show.
Right.
And so that we can share it with everybody. And that's the whole reason why we're doing this, again, is to get this message out so we can have more people having conversations like this out in the open. Right. Because it will allow, the next person to get help. Yes. Because they've heard his story. Yes. They heard David do it. They've heard one thing he said is asking for help is a sign of strength. Yes. Absolutely. And that's the message that we need to keep sending out there, is that is a sign of strength, is being able to ask for help. The hardest part, I think the easiest part, I should say, is to do nothing. Right. So
and that's the only thing that's unacceptable to us. Right. At the end of the day, you don't have to know how to solve it, guys. You don't have to know what to do. You're supposed to get to a helper whose job it is to know, right? If you're having tooth pain, your job is not to know how to fix that. Right. Your job is to get to the dentist and present yourself. Right. That's 100% of your responsibility. Yeah. Once you get there, they're going to give you further instructions. Right.
And that would be great if we can get to a point where going to therapy is like going to the dentist. Yeah. Because we don't hear a whole lot of people like, well, I should go to the dentist, but I don't want people to see me park in the parking lot or walk through that door. What if somebody I know sees me in the waiting room? And, I can't. I don't want them thinking I go to the dentist. When you go to the dentist,
you tell everybody you know. People come back from the dentist like they came back from serving in Vietnam. Like we're all going to be like, wow, this guy's seen some stuff. You guys wouldn't believe what happened. Yeah. And then I lied and said I floss every day. He bought it. I'm sure he did, Ralph.
I'm not ready to come back to work yet.
I still need time. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. And one of the things that you and I, when we first heard this, that we agreed was a part of the tape that we really wanted to zoom in on, is David openly talks about feeling suicidal. Right. And that, I think it's one thing to tell other people, hey, I saw a therapist because I went through a divorce. And your friends will go, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Or I went and saw a therapist because my son has an addiction. Oh, sure, yeah, I get it. Hey, I went and saw a therapist because, I was having a career crisis and I was really shaken up. Oh, yeah, I get it. I went to saw a therapist. Oh, yeah, why? I was suicidal for a while. Oh. Mm-hmm. And there's this immediate frozenness. Right. You just dropped a bomb in the conversation, right? And it's something a lot of people relate to secretly, but people don't know what to do about it.
Yes. And it's funny we brought this up today and how this came up today, because actually Lori Gottlieb from the author.
Is she that national bestseller we gave the bump to? Right. Oh yeah, you're welcome, Lori. Congratulations.
So she had tweeted something out this morning, and I retweeted it, and it was basically her talking about an interview that she did where she talked about this exact thing, where there is this false belief out there that people have about planting seeds.
Oh, right.
Don't talk about suicide because it'll give people ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And how that's complete BS. Well, and but that's the fear that people have, is like, oh, somebody brought up suicide, let's not talk about it.
Don't ask them about it.
Because, I don't want to stress them out. I don't want to push them over the edge.
Oh, my gosh.
But that's the exact opposite. Like, being able to talk about it is very important.
I've even seen that among healthcare professionals.
Sure.
I've met with people in other disciplines, and the regular primary doc. And a lot of times those are the guys that you're going to tell that to. And you're going to be like, so what else has been going on in your life, Nick? And, well, okay, I've been going through a lot lately. I think I'm depressed. I've been having suicidal thoughts. And even they don't know what to do about it.
Right.
And I remember once you and I have led different workshops, and I led one on suicide. And that was one of the misconceptions, is people were like, well, if I ask a friend if they're suicidal, what if I give them that idea? Yeah. And it's like, hey,
I wasn't before, but
they've thought about
it. Which doesn't happen. Like, that does not.
It's not a cheeseburger. It's not. It's not like by bringing up cheeseburgers now you've influenced whether we're going to have lunch.
Right.
Like, you ask somebody, hey, man, are you feeling suicidal? You're not planting the idea of suicide. They're like, you know what? That never occurred to me, but you have a great idea there. Yeah. Thank you, my good man. Do you have any suggestions of how I might complete this? Right. That's not how it works. But guys, since this is so common, and since David was brave enough to bring it up, we definitely want to teach you, the listener, how to check on this and what you probably should do. So if somebody in your life talks about feeling depressed, somehow makes any kind of reference to self-harm or losing hope or giving up on their life, the correct reaction to that is to support them, never provoke, never taunt, never don't take it seriously, always support them, even if that's passive, even if that's with a comment, and also follow up directly with them. That's the part that people are afraid to do.
Yeah.
And I get that, but don't be afraid to do that.
It can be uncomfortable, but it's very important. I've had people I know that kind of went through, suicidal ideation, and I'll make a referral and then I'll follow up with them later. Like, hey, did you reach out to so and so? Did you schedule an appointment?
Did you do that?
How are you feeling? What's going on?
Right.
And doing that regular check-in can be very important.
Well, and people are, like you said, they're scared to do it because they're like, well, what if I ask and that provokes them? And no.
Or even...
You should always ask.
And I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it, too, and I can relate to this when I was in my first, 6 months of being a counselor, is I remember a training we went to, and my mentor, my... clinical director, was saying we have to ask these questions. We have to assess for suicide.
Right.
And I kind of brought
it up.
I know. I kind of like it. It makes me uncomfortable to ask about it, and I really had to think about it. Why does it make me uncomfortable? And I realized it makes me uncomfortable because I'm afraid of them saying yes and me not knowing what to do.
Yes. Right.
And that's a big fear, and I think that's one of the reasons why. Because if you don't ask, you have plausible deniability. Right. I don't have to feel bad if something bad happens because I didn't know.
I didn't confirm it.
But you do. You already have that idea. So talk about it. You're not going to make the situation worse.
By asking about it, and this is the thing I need you guys to understand, even by asking about it and having a person talk about it even briefly, it is therapeutic. Okay? You're not doing therapy with them, but it is therapeutic because they are starting to release the ideas. By speaking them, by sharing them, it's actually taking away some of the power of them. I would rather these thoughts be discussed than be, hiding in the shadows and lurking. So one of the things we wanted to teach you guys is some of the official warning signs of suicidal thinking, right? Again, I don't want you to have to play detective. Ask people, okay? If you see something, say something. That's the deal. But it's the things you guys would think of. If somebody's being hopeless and they don't seem to have a sense of their future, if they talk about feeling trapped or stuck and they're vulnerable, they don't have any options, if they say things that sound existential, like not feeling like life has meaning. For a lot of people, Nick, they don't know this, but anger is a sign of suicidal ideation, especially in men who often mask depression or filter depression through anger.
Right.
That's a huge tell.
Yeah.
And so if you see somebody who seems enraged and angry all the time, it is entirely possible that that is a sign that they may be having suicidal thoughts. If they're not sleeping, that's usually a tell. Anhedonia. They used to take pleasure in things. They seem to not. If they talk about death, that's an obvious red flag. Right. That's a given. If they're isolating, avoiding people, if they're starting to drink or use drugs more, if they have access to a weapon and they've been talking about that, that's huge. And lastly, if they have a plan or they're saying goodbye. And so the thing that I want you guys to know is this. If you see any of those red flags, your job is to talk to the person directly. And in a human way, with compassion, don't be a jerk, and say, hey, Nick, recently on Twitter, I saw you were posting that you've been feeling really hopeless lately. You've been talking about, drinking a lot more. And you know what, the other day when we were hanging out, you just seemed angry the whole time and you were yelling at, the bartender and stuff. Man, I don't want to, be at left of center here, but I care about you. Have you been doing okay? Have you been feeling okay?
Right.
It's that easy.
Yeah.
And if they go, yeah, I'm feeling fine, push a little more.
Right.
But are you though, man?
Yeah.
I just really want you to know it's okay if you're not. We've all been through stuff.
Right.
You want to talk about it? And maybe they say, yeah, I don't know, I've been depressed lately. And you might think, well, I don't want to push them any further, right? I just want to leave it right there. It's okay to say, hey, listen, man, have you been having any thoughts of giving up or ending your life? You don't have to use the word suicide if you don't want to.
Right.
You can just talk like that.
Yeah.
Ask them directly. And they may say no. And okay, you can leave it there. You don't have to, be interrogating about it.
Right.
But just the simple fact that you asked causes the person to reflect, and they may circle back and come to you.
Yep.
Now, if they come to you, that opens up a new can of worms, which is, okay, so what are some tips about what you could do about it? If somebody in your life says that they are not feeling like they're okay, point them toward resources.
I think that's number one. Obviously, that's going to be the biggest thing to do because, again, like if you're not a dentist, you're not expected to fix your friend's cavity.
If they show you their cavity, you're not supposed to pull out some pliers and let me take care of that for you.
It's not your job. You can be a support. You can be a cheerleader. You can help them emotionally, but point them in the right direction. Sit down with them. You pull up Google or go to Psychology Today. Let's find somebody.
Let's find a therapist,
or let's find the suicide hotline number,
Yes, which everybody needs to know. And so we're going to share that again in this show. And guys, I realize it's a phone number. I realize people don't know to memorize this kind of thing. You know how to use Google. Okay, you can pull it out and just ask for the number. But we want to make sure that we say it often and that you know it. What's the suicide hotline?
It is 1-800-273-8255. So 800-273-8255.
So guys, suicidal thinking is not uncommon. It is very common. Most people don't act on it. But if somebody's talking about it, we need to take that seriously. If we see red flags, we need to take that very seriously. If they talk about how they would do it, we got to take it even more seriously. And if they have a plan, that's the kind of thing that we're going to get involved in, probably start talking about a hospital.
By the way, you can call that number or you can text it.
That's right, yeah. And a lot of people don't know that too, but we've had Laura on the show to talk about that you can text the suicide hotline and get feedback and start having a conversation.
Yeah, she used to work there.
Which some people, that's the best they can do right now. But, David, thank you so much for being open and honest about that. I think that that's incredible. And I think that he says it loud and proud. And he supports this show because he believes that this is the kind of thing that people shouldn't be ashamed of.
Absolutely.
So, guys, if you're out there and you've ever had these thoughts, it's okay to talk about it. Go get help. And if you see anybody else out there that seems to be struggling, encourage them and point them toward helpers.
Right. Are we not going to talk about the obvious, about how David sounds a lot like Mark Hamill?
What?
He does. Play it back.
Dude, no. He does not. I'm going to go back and re-listen to the show.
It sounds a lot like Mark Hamill.
This show, I'm going to go back and listen to it.
I mean that as a compliment.
Well, of course.
Mark Hamill's voice.
Mark Hamill is the...
If you got Mark Hamill's voice...
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. The force is strong with this one.
Absolutely.
Well, very good. Thank you so much, David. You're the best, man. We appreciate you writing in. And if any of you guys want to tell your story, hey, pull out that cell phone, record a short clip, tell us a little bit of your tale, send it in, and perhaps we'll even play it and use it to encourage other people.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we discuss medication reminders. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Smitty Scoop. Smitty Scoop is a Canadian professional ice hockey goaltender playing for the Vegas Golden Knights of the National Hockey League. He was drafted out of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, first overall by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2003, where he played for many years. Now he plays for the greatest hockey team in the history of the NHL.
Fact.
Who was robbed in the playoffs by poor refereeing. Had they not been, they would be this year's Stanley Cup champion, as they should have been last year and should be every year. If you know who Smitty is, write your answer on the back of a $20 bill. Post it on Patreon. But thank you so much for supporting Mental Health, Smitty. And if you'd like to join Smitty, you can go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question is about remembering to take medication.
Hey guys, how can I remember to take my meds? So I'm not currently seeing a therapist due to money and time / other things, but I have had 2 different doctors prescribe what they called a low dose of sertraline over the course of the past 3 years or so. At first, I tried taking it before bed, since it said one of the side effects might be that it makes me drowsy, but sometimes I don't get home from work until midnight or later. My husband is asleep, and I don't want to turn on the lights and make noise, so I just get tired and forget. When I see the bottle the next morning, I think that I can take it, or I think that I can't take it because I want to take it at night and I don't know what will happen if I take 2 in a day. I get anxious about taking medicine for my anxiety because I'm sure that I'm going to screw everything up. Later on, after I just stopped taking it, and I decided that I should start it back up again, but now I'm scared to do that too. I set an alarm and would bring my pills to work with me and try to find a time to stop work and eat so I can take the pills, which mostly worked. The problem is, any day I'd get really busy and it would start stressing me out, and I'd miss the alarm and I'd have to turn it off, and eventually I started missing my doses. My most recent attempt at trying to take my medicine daily was setting an alarm for 11 a.m. that was labeled, "Take your goddamn medicine," and getting a pill organizer so I can keep track of it on any given day. It worked for about 3 months, but now I'm back where I started. Do you guys have any tips on how to get me on my medicine regularly? Do you think I might have problems that can't be solved with sertraline? Yeah, great question.
Great question.
I mean, you and I used to run a clinic where keeping people on their meds was like job number one.
Oh, yeah. If we did nothing else, that was the most important thing.
We'd come bang on their door.
For the Patreons who listen to the Patreon version of this episode, they will know that I forgot my jury summons, so I'm probably not the guy to be giving advice on this.
How to take your meds.
But I'll give it a shot.
What's your advice?
One trick that I've always done with anything that I need to remember, I try to think about how my day goes and what are the I don't want to call them landmarks or
normal pit stops of the day.
Yeah, the normal pit stops of the day, the things that I always do.
Right.
And I try to pair things with that.
Yes.
Right. So every morning I'm going to the gym, I'm working out. I've got my keys in a basket that's on the dryer, which is on the way out to the garage.
Oh, right. You can't miss it.
So anything that I've got that has to do with something I have to take something, I take my keys out of the basket and I put them on the dryer, and I put them on whatever the thing is that I have to take.
Because you have to get your keys.
Because I have to. There's no way I'm leaving the house without my keys.
Right.
So there's no way that I'm going to miss this thing. Right?
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah, so I try to pair things like that. Pair things with those landmarks throughout the day.
That's really smart. I've done that too. Yeah. I've put things in my shoes so that I can't possibly leave without them. Yep. When it comes to pills, like I have taken sertraline, and so like I have some pretty intimate commentary on it. The writer talked about being afraid to take it at night because it might make you drowsy. Sertraline I've seen affect different people different ways. I'd say half the people that I've had who take it don't talk about getting drowsy at all. For me, it made me drowsy. So I tended to take it at night, and it would put me to sleep like a baby, and it was fantastic. And I didn't like taking it in the morning because I'd feel like it took a little bit of air out of me, and so for me that would be bad. They do want you to take it with food, and so like I would try to make sure I ate dinner or whatever, but even if I didn't eat, like I was taking the medicine.
Did your wife had to put it in a piece of cheese?
Yeah. She'd hide it in a wedge of cheese and throw it at me, and I would eat it from the floor. But I mean, like, I guess putting it in a conspicuous place, for me it was putting it somewhere where I absolutely was going to pit stop at some point in the day. If you're a Keurig user, like you use a Keurig coffee machine, take the pill bottle down to the coffee machine, put it in the Keurig. Like, actually put it on the little thingy where the coffee falls, and you have to move the pill bottle to put the coffee in, because you will take the pills while it's filling up.
Yes, and that's a good point. Anything that you can do that you have to move it, if you put it in the way.
Yes.
So it's something you have to swerve around or you have to move.
Yes.
That's going to be helpful.
And so the last part of your question was, do you think I may have problems that can't be solved by sertraline? So again, I probably should have said this earlier. Sertraline is an antidepressant. It's an SSRI. It's a low-dose antidepressant, or typically is used as a low dose. It's kind of like that first-level thing that we might use for anxiety or for depression. And so anytime somebody asks, do you think that medicine will solve this problem? My answer is usually, I think medicine's job is to be part of the solution, and I also believe in psychotherapy. And I think that every study I've ever seen validates that theory. I'm a kitchen sink kind of guy. I believe that therapy, fellowships like AANA or support groups, go to your faith group, go to your family, read, journal, do self-help, take medicine, all of the above. So yes, I think that sertraline or any medicine is part of your solution. However, I would almost never say that that's it, that you've solved it by taking the medicine. Usually I want you to do more.
Yeah, there aren't really a whole lot of mental health disorders that are treated solely
by a medicine.
There are
even
some,
if you think of things like a psychotic that needs to have an antipsychotic, even that's going to still
I'm even
require
thinking,
psychotherapy.
I'm even thinking like ADHD is primarily medicine, but there is a component with it that helps teach
almost
the person
always,
how to,
even if that therapy is medication management, ironically,
right.
And that's something a lot of people don't know. Is sometimes as a therapist, we're doing exactly what we're doing in answering this question, which is training you and teaching you how to change your behavior, to modify your behavior, to take a medicine that modifies your behavior.
Right.
So we're just part of it. But that's a really good question. That's a real-life question, and I love it. And, hey, guys, if you're out there and you're experiencing anxiety or depression, you've ever thought of checking in with your general doctor, they can prescribe a low-dose SSRI like a Prozac or a sertraline, even Xanax, which is a little bit different. But don't be afraid of that kind of thing. It's helped a lot of people get through, and that can be part of the solution. Again, we're not giving medical advice on this show, but we're definitely mental health advocates, and we're going to advocate for mental health. And, medicine is part of mental health, so don't be afraid of it. Great question.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll discuss learning from clients. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is Jake Schneider. Jake Schneider was an American actress, singer, and animal welfare activist. He began his career as a band singer in 1939 after his first hit recording, Sentimental Journey, in 1945. My favorite film starring Jake Schneider was Calamity Jane, in which he played the title role in 1953, and also starred in Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. If you know who Jake Schneider is, you can donate money by going to patreon.com/therapy and signing up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy. Our next question is about what we've learned from our clients.
Hi guys, I've been listening to your podcast and loving it for a long time. I would like to ask both of you, what are the top 5 things you've learned from your clients? Cheers.
I love this question.
It's a good question.
Yeah, we never get a question like this.
Yeah. What did you learn from your client?
Right.
Right?
Which I absolutely... The reason why I love this question is because people don't typically think of it that way.
As an interchange.
Yeah, they think of it as we pass on information.
Like we're a professor.
Right. Yeah. No, but it's very much back and forth. Yeah. I mean, a big part of the clinician that I am today is because of the people I've worked with in the past.
Absolutely.
I've learned more from my clients than I have from instructors, than I have from clinical directors, mentors. I mean, all of that combined. We learn a lot from our clients. But the big thing I think too is, as a clinician, you have to train yourself to listen to the message.
Right.
Like you have to look for what the meaning is. Like, what are they trying to teach me? Because you could very easily, and I've seen this happen before with some clinicians, where they get so focused on, I'm passing on information to you,
right,
that they're not looking. They don't think that they can learn from the client,
which is terrible.
Absolutely.
And I'm not surprised by what you just said about you've learned more from your clients than from mentors, because, and this is something we've talked about on the show, if you want to become a professional therapist, you have to go get a graduate degree in some kind of therapeutic discipline. During that time, you're going to spend at least a year doing student practicum, in which you are going to see real life patients as a student, and you're going to see them by yourself.
Right.
You might get to shadow a mentor for a little bit, and we might include you in a few groups, but we're throwing you in the deep end, and we're just going to see how you swim. And nobody's going to babysit you. Nobody's going to monitor you. And when you graduate, you're going to do that for another 2 to 3 years as a postgraduate professional, again, all by yourself. And you're going to learn more from those sessions than you did from any textbooks.
Absolutely.
Even though there's no guru there to tell you something.
Right.
And you're learning how to be a human who's a helper with another human.
Yep.
And that, to me, is huge.
Yeah.
That's one of the things we talk about with grad students is after they graduate, we need to retrain them how to be human again.
Right.
Because the books have kind of taken it out of them.
Yeah,
now they're all
kind of become
scientists.
a robot.
Yeah, and we're like, no, stop doing that.
Yeah.
Like, get in there and be human again. But that's a great question, I think.
I made my list. You made a list?
I did. I made a list. So do you want to do it Letterman style where we start with 5 and work our way up to 1?
I didn't put mine in
an
order of
like in any
importance.
kind of order.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what was one of the lessons?
You want to go first?
Okay. Yeah, I'll start it. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that I wrote down that I've been taught by my clients is that people are more resilient than I guess I always think they are. Like in the beginning you think, like I'm going to break this person. Like when you're a new therapist, you're like, oh no, like I said the wrong thing. But over time and engaging with humans, you realize they're a lot more resilient than you might think they are.
That's a good one. I didn't think about that, but I think I've learned that too. And also just how much resilience in the sense of how much they've had to survive.
Yes. Yeah.
That I've never had to go through.
Oh, right.
You know, and just like...
You hear things, you're like, wow.
Right.
Okay.
Especially when I was working, with foster kids.
Oh yeah.
And just,
they've seen it
just what they've been through. And I'm like, my God, how are you still alive?
Yeah. And then they pick up a soccer ball and they go run out there and play. And you're like, you know what? Yeah. Okay. Humanity is badass. Like humanity can get through anything.
It's pretty amazing.
It is pretty cool.
One thing I put in there is that I've learned that there's no such thing as resistance, only feedback.
You've said this on the show, which I think is a really good one. And what does that mean to you?
Essentially what that means, we all have this experience as counselors, therapists, whatever, where we talk about a client being resistant. They're the ones that are difficult.
Yeah.
We're trying to get them to do something, but they just don't want to change. They just don't want to do what we're asking them to do.
The fools.
Right.
Why don't they get it?
But that's not resistance. There's no such thing as resistance in therapy.
Right. Yep.
That's feedback.
Yep.
What that is that's that individual telling you and saying, hey, Jim, that's not working for me.
Yep.
What you're doing is not working.
Yep.
And if we get stuck in our spot, we're like, no, damn it, I'm the therapist. This is the way that we do it. Then we're going to lose them.
Yep.
We have to be able to be like, oh, okay, this person's telling me that they're not receptive to that. Something about that, they don't buy that. I've got to come up with a new approach.
What's interesting about that, though, is that that is a perspective that not all of our colleagues share. And that is something you and I agree to.
Right.
And in places that we have worked, we have told our staff that we don't buy that argument.
Right.
And I remember a day that I was teaching at a conference once, and you called me and you're like, hey, I'm going to meet with this therapist who we were really upset with because this person was like pushing away from clients and just constantly just waving their hands in the air and going, whatever, they don't want help, so there's nothing I'm going to do about it.
Yeah.
And you were like, hey, I'm going to meet with them and try to coach them. And you were going to talk about this very thing. And they quit. So you remember this?
I don't remember
You called me back and you're like, so I have great news and bad. And you're like, the great news is I've solved the problem. This person will no longer have a problem with our clients. And the bad news is they also quit. You need to put out an ad right now. And so the person gave you like 2 weeks notice right there in the chair. And you were like, what now?
I kind of remember that.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
The person had purple hair for a period of time.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
That's right.
You guys did not get along.
That's right.
Real great.
That's right.
But anyway, no, that's a really good line. I like that. Another one that I learned is people, and this sounds cheesy, but I think it's true for me at least. I've found that my clients do not care how much I know until they know that I care. Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's one of those things where, like, I had to learn, like, when you come out of grad school, you're immediately trying to cite statistics or teach them something. And let me show you this paper. Or I have a handout on this. And it's like, over time, when you're a veteran, a senior therapist knows, don't do any of that. Just connect. Just be human. And eventually you will earn the right to show them things or to teach them things. But in the beginning, the only priority is to connect as a human so that they would walk out of that room and say, Jim gets it.
Yep.
Dude really gets it.
Yep.
And if you can get that, then you might earn permission to teach them something.
Which fits perfectly with my next one, which is that people long to be heard and validated.
Yes.
That's
which I struggle with. And this is actually going to lead to something that I do have on my list is I struggle with because sometimes as a therapist, if I'm not giving them tools and I'm not giving them handouts and I'm not quoting statistics and giving them something, I get frustrated with myself sometimes because I'm like, Jim, you didn't do anything. You didn't do anything for them this time. But that goes with what you just said. People long for the human connection. And that's actually the next one on my list. And the one that I wrote down that I had the hardest time with, that I still struggle with, is sometimes humans just need to talk. And that is progress.
Yes.
And I have to tell myself that all the time because I will walk out of there and I'll think, God, I did nothing for that person today. I didn't get anything in there that they could walk out of this room with. But then they'll tell other people, therapy works. It's great. And I'm like, but all I did was listen.
And there is okay, so I've kind of seen your style a little
yeah.
bit, and you've kind of seen mine. I think mine, for the most part, I would say 95% of the things that come out of my mouth in a session are questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And group is different. If I'm doing group, it's a lot different.
Yeah, right.
But if I'm doing an individual session, it's mostly questions.
Yes.
And it's almost kind of like, for any of our listeners out there who are big into improv comedy, there's a game
It's
where...
funny that you bring this up because I have a client who's attending an improv class with people that are trained in it. They're really good at it. And this client brings up improv all the time, and I'm like, this is just like therapy. Like it really teaches them a lot about life, and it's really impressive.
Yeah, there's the one game where you can only ask questions.
Oh yeah, okay.
So you interact, but like you can only ask questions, and that's it. And that's a big part of how I do a lot of counseling.
That's true.
Is really by just asking questions. So it's not that I'm giving them information. What I'm doing is I'm challenging the way that they think, and I'm forcing them to answer questions that maybe they just glossed over.
Yeah.
They never really thought deep about it, but now they have to answer this question. They are arriving at their own conclusions.
Right.
So kind of getting back to what you were talking about, where you feel like you leave a session and you feel like, God, I didn't offer them anything. Mm-hmm. Well, no, but you offered them space.
Right.
That they can explore their own issues and they can solve their own problems.
I think the reason I've always struggled with that is because my first career was as a teacher.
Yeah.
And so if you walked out of my class and you didn't learn anything, I didn't do my job.
Right.
And so switching that role to being, I think as a therapist, you are a facilitator of information. Right. Sometimes you are presenting it.
But you could also look at it from how do they feel?
Yes.
So like instead of like phrasing it, you're leaving here, do you feel like you're leaving here with more knowledge? You can ask the question, do you feel like you're leaving here in a better mental and emotional state than you came in?
That's a good point. Yeah. And I think that for me, that's an area I've had to grow in as a therapist is because I have to, at the end of the night when I'm going home and I'm thinking about my day, sometimes I'll feel like I didn't do enough. And then I have to challenge myself and think, Jim, you know better than that. That's not how it works. It goes back to what you had said. People long for the human connection. You provided a safe place and honest feedback to that. You didn't have to teach them a statistic today or show them a tool. Like, that was meaningful. Because where else could they possibly have gotten that this week?
Right.
And that was meaningful.
Information that you provide them, they could probably get on Google.
Yeah, right. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a really good point. You can't talk to the robot.
Yeah.
So the human connection was meaningful.
Exactly.
What was your next one?
Everyone has a struggle, which I think kind of goes back to one that we talked about earlier, just going with resilience.
Yes.
We always think about, and again, I always think about the most difficult clients are the ones that just come off and just are mean and aggressive. But you have to understand that they also have a struggle. They're just displaying it in a different way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's absolutely true. That actually goes hand in hand with my next one.
Oh, what's it?
The presenting problem is rarely the problem.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's not sometimes. I mean, when they come in and they say, I have anxiety. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we're going to fix that. I'm going to get that. Or they come in and go, I have alcoholism. Yeah. That's part of it. There's going to be a whole lot more we got to dig into. But rarely is that the singular one thing.
Yep. My next one is patience.
With
something that I've learned.
C or an S?
C.
Ah.
Patience.
Okay.
They've taught me patience.
Oh, yeah. You've learned that from people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And which is really funny because it's one of the most common bits of feedback that I get from clients, especially in group settings, where they'll approach me after group and I'll just say, you are the most patient person I've ever met in my life. Because they'll be in group and they're getting frustrated and they're getting angry.
Yeah.
And I just don't let it show. And I just stay calm and I just stay focused. And which is so funny because that's not how I am outside of...
Yeah, I wouldn't describe you as a patient guy. But, in therapeutic settings, you do keep your cool. And you are usually the last one in the room to speak or to remark. You're usually just being a human who's present and calm and completely unstirred. So that's true. I have seen that true. But, not in real life. No. Good Lord.
And you've never even golfed with me.
Yeah, I can only
You're
imagine.
golfing with me.
Yeah, when we had our breakfast for the book club,
People
you were like, "Where's
fear
our
for their
eggs?"
lives.
People fear, move through. Well, that actually goes with my last one. I think it's actually pretty similar to yours, which is silence provokes reflection. And that was a skill I had to learn, not breaking the silence. And when somebody says something, to offer them silence and allow them to think about what they just said and add more to it sometimes. And so I've had to learn that as a tool. But my clients have taught me that right. If I try that out, a lot of times it brings something more out of them than they knew was there.
Yep.
So that's been cool too.
Yep. My last one is be genuine.
Do you know what the secret to being genuine is?
What?
Be genuine.
Oh.
That's one of my favorite bits when I get to visit with students. I'm like, what's the secret to seeming sincere? That's what I say. What do you think the secret to seeming sincere is? Like, well, be sincere.
Be sincere. And this one was always a challenge for me working in substance use because I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm not an addict myself. I'm not in recovery myself.
Right.
So early on, I felt like I had to earn my street cred, right?
So you started using all the drugs?
Because they know, that's one of the first questions that anybody will ask a drug and alcohol counselor.
Oh, yeah.
Are you in recovery yourself?
Off the bat, yeah.
Have you ever been an addict?
Yeah.
And it's really the question that they're asking. There's a question underneath of that.
Yep.
The underlying question is, can you help me?
Yeah. Right.
And it's phrased in a sense of, have you done this before? Because I need to know that you can help me.
Right.
Right. So when you say no, I've got no history of that. It's sometimes a little off-putting.
Yeah. Sometimes they get scared.
Yeah. So sometimes you don't want to go into a whole lot of detail. You want to try to maintain an image of that you know what you're doing.
Right.
But there are times that they're going to use street lingo.
Yep.
For substances that you're like, what?
Yeah, what is that?
What the hell is that? And I don't want, and sometimes early on I would try to figure out what it is out of context. What is the substance that they're talking about?
I mean, I know what crack means to me.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me what it means to you?
White horse. What is...
I mean, what would be the difference between a white horse and perhaps a brown horse?
So like, I ask,
thoughts on that?
How quickly does it hit you? How long does it
pick
last?
It up from context.
So then I try to figure but
would you say it makes you feel upper or downer?
Yeah. But then I've learned, like, no, just be genuine.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, I don't know what that means.
Right.
And people appreciate that.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Those are my 5.
I like that too because whenever I've been stuck, I will ask questions. And I find that if I'm authentically curious and I go, teach me about that. I don't know what you're talking about. What is that? A lot of times they go, hey, great. I'd rather you be honest and we figure it out together, right? But that was a great question. That was a lot of fun. I liked that one a lot. So we have some announcements. It is Mental Health Awareness Month. If you hadn't already known that, you listen to the show. You've heard it no less than 8 times in the last 8 episodes.
Yep.
But guys, May is dedicated to it. And so, again, I'm going to challenge everybody out there. If you're listening to this show, it is not acceptable to me that you are merely an audience member and a passenger. I expect you to be equipped and to step out and to encourage other people. If you have a voice in social media, use that voice. If you have friends and family, use that connection to connect with them and ask them, hey, how are you doing? And teach people how to find mental health helpers and encourage them to take a look at that for themselves and just raise that awareness. Take away the stigma, guys. And if you're willing to tell your own story, tell your story. Whether that's on our show or in the real world, tell other people about it.
Or even if you're on Twitter, you follow some mental health groups.
Yes.
NAMI or something like that. They'll throw out some good stuff. Just do a quick retweet. Send it out there. Keep sending the message forward.
Yep.
Passing it on.
Another big announcement. One of my favorite podcasts is going to collaborate with us in May.
Yeah, you've been
I've been banging this drum for a long time.
Yeah.
Opening arguments.
They've finally given in.
Finally gave in.
They're like, he's not going to shut up.
I'm like the river, baby. I will erode you. I just never stop. So, Andrew Torres, lawyer, and co-host of Opening Arguments, is going to be a guest on Pod Therapy at a date to be determined, but it will happen in May. It was going to happen on Sunday, Mother's Day, but I was like, hey, it's Mother's Day and I don't want to have a divorce. So I was like, unless you're also a divorce attorney, we're going to have to reschedule. But he's going to be a guest on our show when we can figure out when to record. And we're going to talk about Trump's mental health. That's the topic we're going to discuss, is the famed Goldwater rule. And what does it mean for us as therapists to not diagnose somebody? Should we be diagnosing public figures? And what are the legal rules with that? And we're going to dive into that conversation with him. And so that's coming up. And we might even do a collaboration where we appear on their show too. But we will hold off on that until it's all been finalized. Another important announcement, book club is back. We are reading Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, a therapist, her therapist, and Our Lives Revealed by the great Lori Gottlieb. And I think we have 2 episodes of book club that currently on our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/therapy. You can sign up for as little as $1, and you can listen to a ton of extra content and join our book club. You can buy the book on Kindle and jump into the conversation. There's going to be another one dropping on Monday. And we've been doing pretty good with that. I had a lot of fun with book club. I actually really enjoyed doing that, and so we did 3 up.
Yeah, we need to
do some more.
Yeah,
we should go to maybe a quarry or a construction yard. I think would be a really good idea. Maybe a bowling alley.
Bowling alley. Yeah, I was thinking bowling alley, or I still think there's a spot at McCarran Airport where you can park and watch the jets fly in.
We'll be like the Wayne's World.
Be a great spot. Yeah.
That Wayne's World bit. Here it comes. Look up. Keep looking up. Whoa. All right, so we do have a new THERAPOD to thank. We want to thank Chelsea S., who has joined the THERAPOD community. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And hopefully I didn't miss anybody else. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had a regular episode, but we definitely want to thank our bosses.
Yes, we want to especially thank our bosses, the Elite Eight, the mysterious and shrouded Illuminati members of our fan club, the TheraProducers. Thank you, Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie Jr., Mint, Chairman of the Board, Kayla Lansbury, David Datascoop Villalon, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Don, and ex-officio board member Ellie O'Dare.
If you would like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy a rant about jury duty and how Nick almost went to jail, you can join us at patreon.com/therapy and join the party for as little as $1, and it helps us make this podcast possible. And as always, thank you for supporting mental health. That's all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today, especially David Datascoop Villalon. We really appreciate it. Remember, Pod Therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by opening this episode's description in your podcast app and copying and pasting the link provided in your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter @PodTherapyGuys, and of course at patreon.com/therapy. And don't forget our Kickstarter, which is also in this episode's description. Click it, share it, and help us raise awareness for mental health by raising the volume of our show.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at www.podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
Dun dun dun. We should have like the Law and Order sign out at the end of this episode.
Sure, that's fair use, right?
I think so. I feel like it's been spoofed enough at this point that it's like a thing.